Give us the wisdom to understand your word and to apply it to our lives, even though it may seem completely foreign to us. All these things we ask in the holy precious name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Okay, so we have Judah and Tamar. Before, did anybody read this before coming today? You did? Okay, so I don't want to hear from you. You have to be quiet. Okay? So before knowing anything about Judah and Tamar, can you tell me anything about Judah and Tamar?
They were sons.
Without looking at it and reading it?
Weren't they the
No, right? Okay. So how about Judah? Let's start with Judah.
He's the fourth son.
He is the fourth son of Jacob, the fourth son of Israel. Okay? So we've already seen that, I think, I don't know if we've seen that part yet. Alright, so we'll just deal with Judah today. So I'll start, we're going to read the first 5 verses. So it happened at that time, so what's the time that we're talking about from the last chapter?
after they sold
Selling
Joseph,
Joseph into slavery to the
Mennonites,
Midianites, not Mennonites,
Midianites,
and or / the Ishmaelites. Okay? So, and it happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Selah. Judah was in Chezib when she bore him. Okay. Just that part. What do we got?
He marries a Canaanite woman.
Okay, and how do we feel about that?
not good.
Not great, because
Was told not to.
he was told not to do that, and the Canaanites are outside of the blessing, right? Same with the Adulamites.
Are they pagan?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. It depends on your definition of pagan. What is your definition of pagan?
Well, we believe in false gods.
So, the false god to the Christian God,
Yes.
or the Jewish God.
Oh, there's only one.
I know, but I'm saying, I'm just asking your definition.
Okay.
So then yes, they're pagans, because they're going to worship, do we know about the false gods of the Canaanites? Starts with a B. Baal, very good, or Baal, depending on your American accent, right? And then the other one is, it starts with an A.
Oh, no.
It's the Ashtaroth, right? So you've got Baal and you've got the Ashtaroth. Baal was the lord of the sky, and the Ashtaroth was the stars. Okay, so you get kind of like the sun and the stars going on with that. Okay, so Judah is not doing what we say is right in the eyes of the Lord, because that verb, literally, he turned aside, turned away from what he was supposed to be doing. Okay?
Probably never even got married.
And probably, it doesn't say that he got married, just that he's out gallivanting around the countryside. Right?
And
So,
he turned away from his brothers. He's no longer with the family.
okay, so what can we make of that? Is Judah just, what's the old phrase? Sowing his wild oats? Or is there more to it?
Guilt?
Guilt?
Guilt for selling his brother and tricking his father?
Okay, because Judah was really the one that took charge in the last chapter.
Yep.
Okay? And he was the one that said, oh, okay, well, Reuben doesn't want us to kill him. Let's just sell him and make a little bit of a profit. Okay? So before, Judah was quote unquote good because he didn't kill his brother. And now he's quote unquote bad for turning aside from his family. Okay? So, he's not doing what's right in the eyes of the Lord. He's not doing what's right in the eyes of his family. He's not doing what's right in terms of the blessing. So how is Judah going to come off in this chapter?
Not good.
It's bad, and it's going to get worse. Okay? So, good. Anything else? We good with that?
So it wasn't a one-night stand because they had.
It wasn't a one-night stand. It was at least a three-night stand. Right? You can throw around concubine, you can throw around wife, like whatever word you want to use. It doesn't say that he was married, which is not good. Okay? Alright, so this is where the problem is going to come in this upcoming paragraph. So far it's been pretty easy. Okay? Alright, and Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother." But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, so whenever he went into his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground, so as not to give offspring to his brother. And what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house, till Selah, my son, grows up." For he feared that he would die like his brothers. So Tamar went and remained in her father's house. Okay. What are we supposed to make out of all this? You're shaking your head. You're like,
I wasn't here for a couple weeks when I left. It wasn't good, and now it's
It's gone from bad to worse, right?
Yeah, it didn't get any better.
Well, and that's kind of the theme of Genesis, right? That sin just kind of keeps on evolving and getting a little bit more deceptive each time and getting a little bit worse. So, what are we supposed to make out of all of this?
Can I comment?
Please.
I learned that it was all about, is this correct, elaborate marriage? In those times, it was the thing to do, that if one dies, the next eldest son marry that widow in order to protect land and her and.
Yeah, I'm
I mean, it was a custom.
I'm
right?
writing this down. Oh, it's an IR, not an ER. I knew I was going to spell it wrong. Okay, so this is a custom. So did you study before you come on?
I did.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so good. You kind of stole my thunder a little bit, though. That's okay. It's okay. I love it. So this is this comes from the Latin word. Let's see if I have it down here. Levier. This is Latin for brother-in-law. Okay? So that's where this term comes from. It doesn't come from Levi.
That's
It's just
what I was thinking.
right, that's kind of what you automatically think, but that's not what it is. So the Levite marriage just means that it's exactly what you said, Judy, that the brother-in-law marries, the older son's widow. Or the brother of the brother who died marries his brother's widow in order to preserve not only the widow, but the firstborn's line. Okay, so for the sake of argument, if Onan had a son with Tamar, that son would legally not be his own son. That son would belong to the dead father to carry on that dead father's birthright, so he would get a double portion because he was the firstborn. Okay? So there's a lot of benefit to being the firstborn son. And even if you die, your quote unquote offspring from your own family is going to carry that along. Okay? So that practice seems completely ridiculous to us, right? Because we don't normally give double portions to the firstborn. There's not like, we want, in America, everything has to be equal all of the time, right? So if you get a popsicle, then you get a popsicle too, even if you were bad and you were good, right? So we gotta make sure everyone's feelings don't get hurt, okay? That's not the case here, all right? So, how are we supposed to feel about this?
Well, it says it was wicked in the sight of the Lord,
What was wicked?
that he refrained from having children.
Okay. So, let's start with first, because he was the first one, right? It's really simple. He was wicked, God killed him. That was it. Okay? So, wicked. And, alright, so now we have Onan. So, this question gets really tricky. And I'm not trying to give you a trick question. I'm saying that the initial answer that you're going to give is going to have implications that you may not mean. Okay? So, what is Onan's sin? What did Onan do wrong?
Wasted his semen.
He wasted his semen in order to do what?
Produce an heir.
To refrain from giving children. Right? So, he wasted his semen, and so then Onan gets killed too. Okay? So a lot of ancient church fathers, and even I think Martin Luther, I didn't really read Luther on this, but they equate Onan with masturbation. And they say that masturbation is completely wrong because it wastes the semen, and therefore this is just like the worst possible sin that you could possibly do. Is Onan masturbating?
No.
No, he's not. So that's like a completely separate topic that I believe that the church fathers and Martin Luther did not interpret correctly. Okay? I'm not saying that masturbation is correct. I'm saying that you can't use this text to show that it's wrong. There are other texts for that. Okay?
I also read that this whole chapter gives reason for us not to practice birth control.
Okay. I would love to have that discussion after this chapter. Because that is a completely other part. Yeah. Alright. We can do it, but I'm only going to devote 10 minutes to it. Okay? So, can you explain your comment a little bit more?
Because God kills Onan. He found that this act was wicked. I'm assuming that that's where we get that religion today.
Okay, so we already established that this is not talking about masturbation, but is it referring to birth control?
Yes.
Okay, how so?
Well, he's doing it to prevent offspring.
Conception, yeah.
So that's his whole purpose for doing it. So he maintains, I guess he gets his brother's benefits because he's the second oldest. And if there's she doesn't have a son, he keeps what was his brother.
What? Yeah. because then he's the one that's the firstborn, right?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
But what's the sin?
Oh,
The action itself.
so, okay, this could get heated, and that's okay, I can handle it. But just so we know, I'm okay if we don't agree on this topic. Okay, so go ahead.
Well, to me, the sin is that God was upset with him about was not the action itself, but the intent. His deliberately wanting to prevent this child because it's not profiting him anything.
So it's
You know, if the sin is in his mind.
Okay, so then what I'm gonna re-say what you said in different words and tell me if I did it right. Okay, so this is not talking about birth control. This is talking about the sin of pride and greed because he only wants things for himself.
Yep.
And that's why he's doing this. Okay? Those two interpretations are completely right. Okay? So you have to kind of decide which one you're going to go with.
Because he still did the act.
Because he still did it,
Okay, he did the
right?
act with her, it just didn't
Complete it.
complete it.
Okay? So we have to kind of make our interpretive move, right? Is this talking about birth control, yes or no? You're allowed to say either yes or no, okay? The Catholic Church is going to say yes. This is talking about birth control. We should not use any form of birth control ever. Okay? That has been the traditional Catholic Church stance up until 1980 something with Vatican II. Okay? So, this has been the traditional Protestant interpretation, Protestant meaning non-Catholic, for, I think, ever since the Reformation. Maybe just after. Okay? So I am going to go with this, okay? Because I don't think that it's a sin to use a condom. But this is what it's saying, if you interpret it that way. I think that, gosh, if I have to put a number on it, 98% of America uses birth control in some form. Okay, so does that mean that 98% of Americans are going to hell? I don't think so, right? I don't think God has killed anyone in America for using birth control. I personally don't think birth control is wrong. I think birth control is very wise, personally. But I understand if people don't feel the same way that I do, right? There are very, very strong conservative Lutheran people that really do not believe in birth control. And so that's why you're getting families in the seminaries that are having 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids. Okay? And then, so this is where the line of thought runs. Okay? So let's just have, for the sake of argument, hypothetically speaking, that Amanda and I had 8 children. Okay? The house, the parsonage, is big enough to house 8 kids and us. We would be a little cramped, but we would be able to make it work. Okay? You share bedrooms. You turn an extra living room into another bedroom so that everyone has a place to sleep, this, that, and the other thing. Okay? What is going to be the implication of Amanda and I having 8 kids? What is going to be the result of that for you?
Expenses go,
We are
expenses,
going to need a lot more money to pay for all of those kids. And according to Lutheran polity, that burden, quote unquote, falls on the church. So, is it okay if we pause?
I haven't seen how you did that.
I think personally, and again, I totally understand if another pastor says the opposite, or if you believe the opposite, like I think, like both of these are logical interpretations of this. I don't think it's right to have kids if you can't afford them. That's just the way that I feel. And I think I would say the majority of Americans probably feel that way. And if I'm wrong, that's okay too, right? Like I don't have to be right all the time. But like Amanda and I wanted more kids, but every doctor that we had when Amanda had Rosa told us not to have another kid because Amanda was so sick when she was pregnant. So got more one and done. That's great, right? No problems. And it's cheaper for you. Right? But it's not always about money, it's also about resources, right? So like, if Amanda had another kid and she died, then the resources are half of what they were before. I don't know if that's really right either, because I would feel a lot of guilt over that, right? Well, I want another kid. I don't care if you die. Well, it's not really love, right? So we have to just kind of deal with it that way, okay? So did that answer your question about birth control?
Yeah, I mean, I made a statement that that's what we're,
Yeah,
that whole
that's
concept
one way
comes
to
from.
interpret it.
Yeah, and I was raised as a Catholic, and when you go back to Catholicism, I was actually told in those teenage years,
Mhm.
if you know that you cannot conceive, you have no business getting married.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
that's the whole purpose
How
of
strong it
marriage,
was,
is
yeah.
to conceive.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. And so, if you want to go that route,
I mean, I know there was different times, I was
well,
raised
no,
in the 1940s.
but there are some people that still believe that. I think that is part of Mennonite theology, maybe Amish theology, that you can only have sex in order to conceive, and if you don't conceive, then the sex was either a sin or it was worthless. Okay, so the best argument that I can make against that is the Book of Song of Solomon, where he is, it's an allegory of how he has sex with his wife, is basically what that book is. So he doesn't make reference in there to only having sex for conception. In Ecclesiastes, we're told to eat, drink, and be merry. I think that as long as you are married, you're allowed to have sex, and that's part of being married. So that is the traditional Protestant interpretation, again, because Protestant pastors are allowed to get married, and for a long time Catholic priests were not. So I think it still is, right? If you start seminary as being married, you're allowed to stay married, but I don't think you're allowed to get married when you're a priest. Does that make sense?
I don't think you can be a priest if you're
No.
married.
I think they may have changed that in the
Yeah,
past
they
couple
have.
years.
A full priest or a deacon?
No, full priest.
I think a
Ed and
full
I
one,
know
yeah.
a priest that was
It's-
married
it's
and
rare.
divorced and became a priest,
It's
had
rare.
children.
Yeah.
He served at St. Denis here.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So so it's those lines of what is birth control, what is sex, how does that like play into our lives?
But in the Lutheran faith, you cannot become a pastor if you've been divorced.
Okay.
Here we go.
We're over the 10-minute mark. Okay. There is no rule or law that says you cannot be a Lutheran pastor if you're divorced. Okay? Most district presidents who are in charge of allowing you to go to seminary or not will not allow you to go to seminary if you've been divorced.
But there's not a rule.
But there's
So
not
there-
a rule that's written down on a sheet of paper, okay? So there were,
That's wrong.
I would say 10% of the guys that I went to seminary with were divorced before. So it's not unheard of, but it's not incredibly common. And what I can tell you is that the years go by, the more common it is.
I know of a deacon that said that he was in seminary and told that he could not be a priest because he was
If
divorced.
you start seminary and then get a divorce while you're in seminary, they usually kick you out. Usually. That's not always the case, okay? So, and again, this gets very weird, and it goes with the pendulum, back and forth, right?
So it depends on
For-
who's in charge. That's wrong.
So the 1920s, 1930s, all the way through, I'm not gonna get my dates right, through 1950, they encouraged Lutheran pastors to be single and not to get married. For celibacy reasons, but also just because you can serve people better if you're not distracted by family, right? So 1950s through 70s, 80s, 90s, they encouraged pastors to get married before they went out. So it gets really confusing with the times. My grandfather, when he was at the seminary in Springfield, had to get special permission from the president of the seminary in order to get engaged to my grandmother. He had to have a letter of recommendation from the president. It's a little ridiculous, okay? So we still have that letter, it's part of our family history, this, that, and the other thing, okay? It's in a little binder somewhere, okay?
Because she's like, he said it was okay.
He said it's okay, I promise, right? So we're starting to see a trend, usually in the more conservative faction of the church, saying that no, it is actually better for pastors to be single. So we're kind of starting that swing back to the other side. So if you're single, great. If you're married, you have to have 10 kids and never have birth control. Those are your two options.
So you're giving marriage advice to people that you've never been married.
That's why I personally was never going to take a call to a church without being married. Because I think I wouldn't feel comfortable, A, giving marriage advice, or B, doing marriage counseling without being married myself.
Yeah.
But that is not, that was a personal choice that I made, that I did not take a pastoral call until I was married. Because when I graduated seminary, I was still single. So that was just, that's my life, okay? We beaten the dead horse? Are we good? Good to move on? Okay, good, all right. Okay, verse 12 through 19. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. When Judah was comforted, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, and he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. And when Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Selah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He turned to her at the roadside and said, come, let me come in to you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, what will you give me that you will come in to me? He answered, I will send you a young goat from the flock. And she said, if you give me a pledge until you send it. He said, what pledge shall I give you? She replied, your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood.
That's just messed
The
up.
plot thickens. It is so messed up, we can't even really talk about it.
What happens to this guy?
Tell me about it. Go on, go.
It is just what you said, sin begets or whatever.
Begets
sin.
sin.
And look at us today. you know?
Yeah, yeah.
This is-
I I mean, yeah, so when you really think about this, right, this is chapter 38, and so 36 chapters ago, God said that it was good. And now we have this ridiculousness, right? And this is still the first book of the Bible. We haven't even gotten to Joshua and Judges yet. And 2 Samuel. You want to see some sordid stuff? Read 2 Samuel. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay? Alright, so what are we supposed to make out of this?
She wasn't given a man in order to survive,
So she's
selling herself.
well, she wasn't given to the next brother to follow the Levite marriage. And so she was obeying the authority of her father-in-law and remaining a widow waiting for the third son. Okay? Which is hard enough as it is. Just that fact is a little ridiculous. Wait until this 5-year-old grows up and then you can have sex with him. What? Right, like it's comical, okay? So, so she decides to prostitute herself. The real question is why? Go ahead.
Well, I never interpreted it as prostituting herself because there was just one person in mind that she was going to do this with. And she was going to do this because she had been denied her rights, sent back to live in her father's house as a unmarried widow with absolutely no rights or status in her father's house. And she should have been the wife of the firstborn in her husband's house. So she was denied all this, and she sees an opportunity, and she's a smart cookie. And she jumped in and she took the opportunity.
I don't know if I would describe her as smart, but she's certainly not dumb. Put it that way.
Maybe devious.
Devious, okay. So I love you, okay? You are completely wrong.
Tell me how.
Okay. Everything that you said is correct, except
should record that.
you just justified her actions. You justified a sin by saying,
Get back at
well, okay, so we have to agree, first of all, that what she did was a sin.
That's true.
And it was not okay for her to do that. So whenever we read in the Bible, or whenever we experience something where we have to justify a sin, that is also a sin. Okay? Because sin can never be right. Only righteousness is
You
right.
can't justify it.
So you can't justify it. Okay?
I've heard that one.
Right. So the other way to say that is the end doesn't justify the means. Okay? Is that what you're going to say?
No, I was looking at it in that same direction, that she did a sin, and she did it for greed,
Okay.
because she wanted what was there.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of falling back and trusting in the Lord to take care of her, she went for that greed.
Mm-hmm. And let's be honest. Okay, no one wants to be a widow. That's no one's like number one goal in life, right? Women don't feel that way. That's not the way your brains are wired. Okay? But was she okay?
She was taken care of.
She was being taken care of by her own father. It wasn't the life that she wanted, but God had met her needs for shelter, for food, for water, for emotional stability, right? So you can make the argument, well, she didn't even know what she had, she just should have taken it and been okay. That's not normally how our brains work. We always want the better things, right? And so she is thinking in her mind, I want the better thing, I've got to make it happen because Judah's not doing his job. Okay? So what is she ultimately doing?
She's overruling God's plan.
She's overruling God's plan, B, overruling the authority of her father. C, overruling the authority of her father-in-law. So you can't justify this at all and be right.
So it's not her duty to have offspring.
It is her duty to have offspring, but she was not married. And because, even though Judah wasn't doing the right thing, her having sex with him was not the right thing either. Okay? We cannot justify her actions by saying that, well, she deserved to put herself in a better place.
I guess it wasn't so much justifying, but seeing the process
I
of how she.
don't
is
get
obtaining
me
her
wrong.
ends.
I understand why she did what she did.
Yeah, that.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it right.
True.
And I think that we do that. I know that I've done that in my life, where I think to myself, I don't like my situation. I'm going to go ahead and do this thing that I think is going to make my life better. And most of the time that comes back to bite me in the butt. Because A, I wasn't waiting on God. B, I didn't have the authority to go out and do that. Okay? So, she's not right. Judah's not right. What else?
I think she took that pledge, she took something that's gonna prove who he had sex with.
Okay,
There's a
so-
goal there.
So we got the pledge, what was it? The cord
The cord and the
and the
staff.
staff. Okay, so I'm gonna read you this thing, okay? The signet, or the seal, was a small ceramic cylinder, custom made, fastened to a cord, and worn around one's neck. When the seal was rolled like a tiny rolling pin across a piece of clay, it would produce a special design identifying the seal's owner. Herodotus, a Greek historian, reminds us that no Babylonian of any standing would ever be seen without his cylinder seal. Tamar requested these particular items as collateral, not because they were so valuable, but because they provided a positive identification. Okay? So, I think that I know that when I learned about this in college, I learned that the signet ring was like the most important part of someone's identity, and it was so expensive and it's impossible to replace, all that stuff. It's maybe not that serious to replace it, but it was definitely connected to Judah and his person. Okay? So there's no denying that this is what this is being used for. Okay? Good. Anything else?
Well, she deceives him because she takes that because she knows that if it comes back, I don't think he would have had sex with her had he known who she was.
Oh, absolutely not. I think Judah knows better than that.
So he would not have done that.
Right.
He thought he was with a prostitute. So she takes a signet ring, so when it comes down
But-
to it, you can prove.
Go back to what we just said, though. So she knows Judah's personality enough to know that he's going to go prostitute his way to Timnah? That doesn't really sound like someone that we want being a patriarch. Right?
I think that was the way
That was just the way it was done.
during that time.
Right? It's just like so completely ridiculous to us.
They all had,
Concubines. Yep, yep,
so
yep.
it's okay.
Yep. Okay, so let's keep on going so we can finish this chapter and be done with it. Verse 20 through 23. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the man of the place, "Where is the cult prostitute who was at Enaim at the roadside?" And they said, "No cult prostitute has been here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I have not found her." So the men of the place said, "No cult prostitute has been here." And Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat, and you did not find her." Okay, so does that mean something different to you? A cult prostitute as opposed to a prostitute? Never thought you'd be asked that question, did you?
That seemed to be the system back in those days.
How so?
Well, a lot of the pagan religions were circulated around cult prostitutes that they even practiced out of the temples. They were temple prostitutes, and there was some. It was just that's the way it was done.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't normally think of like ranking prostitutes, right? Like the different kinds of just a regular on the street and then a cult prostitute. So it's weird because in the last paragraph it was just prostitute, and now Judah assumes that it was a cult prostitute. The cult prostitutes probably would have been a little cleaner, a little nicer, a little bit more refined. And so Tamar, being a widow, is probably not like doing crazy work. She probably looks still a little beautiful, that kind of stuff. So she would have resembled a cult prostitute more than just your run-of-the-mill on the street. So there's nothing about that that implies temple. There's nothing in that signifies worship.
She's not a street person, you know,
She looks a little bit better.
Made.
Yeah, exactly right, exactly right, yeah. So what's Judah's ultimate concern here?
To get his stuff back.
He doesn't want to be laughed at. He's not embarrassed that he didn't find her. He's embarrassed that he doesn't want everyone to know that he didn't find her. That's really weird. Okay? So he's lost his signet, he's lost his cord, he's lost his staff. Okay? It appears that he's not too upset about that.
It seems like the cord is important to them in the Jewish faith.
Right?
Why would he give that?
And he
his
just
ring?
it seems like he just doesn't care. Which makes us interpret that it was not like a highly valuable object.
But
right?
you would think it is.
It's kind of like our driver's license, right? It doesn't cost a lot to get a driver's license. If you lose yours, you just go to the DMV and you pay, what, $30 and get a new one. Okay? It's annoying, but we can all do that, right? It's not like we lost the ring that we got from our grandmother as an heirloom of something that is just completely irreplaceable and really precious to us. Okay? But when we lose our driver's license, oh wait, we can't do some things anymore, right? Like, it is important, but it's not valuable. Does that make sense? Okay. So he's more concerned about being laughed at. So Judah he doesn't look good right now. This is not high quality behavior. Okay? So, about 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality." And Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." And she was being brought out, and she sent word to her father-in-law, "By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant." And she said, "Please identify whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." Then Judah identified them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Selah. And he did not know her again." So, he would not have done that if he had known. Okay?
That's why I thought it was her duty to do what she did, in order to continue the offspring.
Not with her father-in-law. With the other son, yes.
Why
But
did he say, "She is more righteous than I"?
why do you think?
Because he Well, if you're saying the third one's not old enough,
Well, he is now.
so then he didn't give her to the third son.
So why is she righteous and he's not?
Well, she has his offspring.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So what about any of this makes her righteous?
Is she righteous?
I
I don't think she's righteous, and he's just trying to,
Isn't she following the Leverett law?
not by having sex with her father-in-law. That goes against the Levirate law. Okay? So what makes her righteous
In his eyes.
in his eyes, not in God's eyes, is that she has showed him his sin. He now knows the sin that he has done. And the only way that he would have seen that is for Tamar to do what she did. Which is still a sin. It's not justifying it. It's still wrong. But now Judah knows.
maybe he's saying, well, she got me. She got me.
Right. But he is using the word righteous, which is one of the words that we normally attribute to God.
Well, he's
Okay.
wrong.
Well, nothing about this chapter is right. Okay? So, that's okay. But it's good, right? Because he did not know her again. So, now that he knows, he's doing the right thing, and he's no longer going to have sex. He's not going to make her his wife, because that goes against the Levirate marriage laws. Okay? But, so he did a bad thing, but now he's on the right track again.
Two wrongs don't make it right.
Two wrongs don't make a right, but God can still use the wrongs to make a right. And I think that's what happens here. She didn't make him do the right thing. God made him learn to do the right thing. There's a difference there. Okay? So, here we go. We got 3 minutes left. When the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." But he drew back his hand, and behold, his brother came out. And she said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." Therefore his name is called Perez. Afterward his brother came out with the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Okay, now, women. I have never birthed anything. I am assuming that if you have had children, you are somehow able to put yourself in this woman's predicament, right? It's weird for a hand to come out first, because that means the position is wrong, right? It's even weirder for him to pull it back in. And then it's weirder that the other one should come out first because they would have flipped around, right? And I'm assuming there's not a lot of room in there for them to do the flip. And so this is really, really odd. And so when you're thinking about this, and like as a man, because I just don't know, and I never will know, like between contractions and the breathing and the pain and the, all of the things that get wrapped into this, you're like, oh, is it out, is it out, is it out, like, ah. And then it's just a hand. And then pull it, what? What are you talking, like this is what? No! Because with the contractions, you're willing to put up with the pain knowing that it's going to be over, right? You would never go through that kind of pain for the rest of your life, but you know that it's only a certain amount of duration, and so you're able to put up with it, right? Otherwise, no one would have kids. And so, all three of those things, it's crazy. to think about, okay? So let's talk about the names, because we need to know what the names mean. Verse 29 is odd for us because, at least for me, because again, I'm not a woman, I won't know what giving birth is like. But when I hear the word breech, a breached birth, that just means that the head wasn't down,
Yes.
right? And that could mean any other part of the body comes out first, right? And so we have the hand coming out first, which makes it a breech birth. But Perez isn't the one that put his hand out. He's the other one, okay? So in this case, Perez comes from the verb in Hebrew that means to spread open or to spread out. So he's literally spreading out the womb. And so he's the one that comes out first, even though his brother put out his hand first. Okay? So the breech doesn't necessarily mean that she had a hard labor, although I would think that if your hand's coming out first and they're doing the flip, that would make it pretty hard. Okay? And so Zerah comes from the verb that means to shoot forth. So he shot forth his arm, and that's where he got his name from. It doesn't mean scarlet. It means to shoot out. Okay? So Perez means the one that spread open the womb, and Sarah means the one that shot forth. Now, if we were to, I thought I had it right down here. Oh, I don't. That's really sad. So if you look at the end of Ruth, oh, there it is. If you have your full Bibles, you want to open up to the last chapter of Ruth. Ruth chapter 4. Ruth is kind of a hard book in the Bible to find because it's only 4 chapters. Comes after Judges.
And where do we go from here?
Ruth chapter 4, it's like I don't know the verses, but it's like the last paragraph. Verse 18. Can you help me find it? Here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ruth chapter 4, verse 18. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron, Hezron fathered Ram, Ram fathered Amminadab, Amminadab fathered Nahshon, Nahshon fathered Solomon, Solomon fathered Boaz, Boaz fathered Obed, Obed fathered Jesse, and Jesse fathered David. Okay? So this is the line of Judah. That is the line of David, which is the line of Jesus. Wow. Okay? So, you can ask yourself, well, why is this chapter even in the Bible? This chapter is so ridiculous. Well, it's because this is the line of Jesus. This is
David was born of sin.
David?
Well, I mean, because they're illegitimate children
Oh, you're talking about like in general.
in general.
You're not talking about Jesse. You're talking about, well, I mean, I think, yeah, you can make that statement. I'm pretty sure everyone has at least one person in their family that is not completely legitimate, right? So I think that God was using bad things to make a good thing happen. Again, which is what, that's his MO, right?
Yeah,
Do you know what that means, MO?
modus operandi.
Modus operandi. Very good. Gold star for the day, which means...
I watch too much TV.
No. What does modus operandi mean in Latin? The way of operating. Okay? So because that ends in an I, that makes it a gerund, so that's why it's operating. So the way of operating. Okay? Good. Okay, we feel okay? This was a lot of sin. Come back next week, we're gonna get some more sin, but it's gonna be a little bit more palatable to take. Okay, so this is kind of how the rest of this is gonna go, okay? Because once we hit chapter 39, it's almost like a horse race, where you start and you get going, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're done. And you're like, I don't even know what happened, okay? So, chapter 39 is what we're going to do next week. It's a shorter chapter, and there's not a lot to talk about, okay? So, if we do chapter 39 only, that's okay. We have a shorter week, we can end a little early. But what we should really do is do chapters 40 and 41 at the same time. Okay? So what I don't want to do next week is go on to chapter 40, because I want to do 40 and 41 at the same time. So we can either do one chapter next week, or we can do 3 chapters next week. And we'll see how we feel a week from today.
We can talk about birth control again next week.
I'm not planning on talking about birth control until we get to Exodus chapter 1. Okay? Good. Comments, questions, concerns, weather reports, sports scores? Thank you.
Tigers.
Go Tigers. Did they win last night?
Yes, they did.
Oh, good.
A walk-off again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So, because we kind of did our little tangent on birth control, I didn't get to some of the connections with this chapter and the rest of Genesis. Would you like to do that next week and kind of revisit this a little bit? If we have a
Yes.
little bit of extra time? Okay.